I'm 78 years old, and I've lived long enough to speak without rushing. I don't say that to sound wise. I say it because time has slowed me down whether I wanted it to or not. There was a stretch of my life when slowing down felt like failure. When I was younger, being busy felt like proof that I mattered. If my days were full, if my phone rang, if someone needed me, then I felt solid, real, necessary. I didn't question that belief. I built my life on it. I used to wake up before the sun, not because I loved mornings, but because it made me feel ahead of something. I'd drink my coffee standing up, already thinking about what needed to be done next. My calendar was packed, my desk cluttered, my mind always halfway somewhere else. People used to say, "You're always on the go," and I took that as a compliment. I wore exhaustion like a badge. I thought importance sounded like urgency. From the outside, my life looked right. Steady job, reliable income, responsibilities, stacked neatly, one on top of another. I showed up, I provided, I fixed problems. If someone asked how I was doing, I'd say, busy? And that single word felt like an explanation for everything. Busy explained why I missed dinners. Busy explained why I forgot birthdays. Busy explained why I was always tired and never fully present. I believed that once things settled down, I'd have time. I always believed that. I didn't realize it then, but my life was running on a kind of autopilot. Every day followed the same rhythm. Wake, work, solve, move on. I didn't stop to ask why I was moving so fast, or where I thought I was headed. Movement itself became the goal. Stillness felt dangerous, like something I hadn't earned yet. I told myself I'd rest later, pay attention later, feel things later. Later became my favorite word. There were people in my life who tried to slow me down. They didn't argue, they didn't demand, they just waited. My wife used to sit at the kitchen table after dinner, hands wrapped around a cup of tea, watching me gather my papers, my keys, my reasons for leaving the room. She'd ask simple questions. Can this wait? Will you be back soon? I'd answer without looking up. I meant no harm. I truly believed I was doing what needed to be done. What I understood years later was that being needed is not the same as being loved. At the time, I thought they were interchangeable. If people relied on me, surely that meant I mattered. I didn't notice that reliance can exist without closeness. I didn't notice that presence can disappear, even while responsibility remains. The turning point didn't arrive loudly. It didn't announce itself. It came quietly, the way most irreversible things do. I was in my early 60s when my body first forced me to stop. Nothing dramatic, just fatigue that didn't go away, a tightness in my chest I tried to ignore. I told myself it was stress, that once this project was finished, once this quarter ended, I'd slow down. I didn't slow down. One afternoon, I found myself sitting in a small waiting room, staring at a wall I couldn't remember choosing. The room smelled faintly of disinfectant and old magazines. My hands were folded in my lap, doing nothing. That alone felt unnatural. For the first time in decades, there was nowhere I needed to be. No one needed me in that moment. The silence pressed in on me, and I realized how unfamiliar it felt. That wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part came later, after I recovered enough to return to my routine, only to find it no longer fit the same way. I noticed small things then. The way my wife spoke to me more gently, as if unsure how much of me was still reachable. The way my children no longer interrupted me when I was working, because they'd learned not to. I had taught them that lesson myself, without meaning to. There's a memory that still stays with me. It's ordinary, almost embarrassing in how small it is. My daughter was about 10. She was sitting on the floor of the living room, coloring quietly. I was at the table with paperwork spread out in front of me. She stood up, walked over, and held up her drawing. I remember nodding, smiling without really seeing it, and saying, "That's nice, sweetheart." She stood there for a second longer, then went back to the floor. I don't remember what I was working on. I do remember the sound of her footsteps moving away. Years passed. before I understood what that moment cost. As I got older, the calls slowed. Not all at once, just gradually. Fewer questions, fewer updates. People didn't need me as much, and without that constant demand, I felt strangely hollow. I had spent so many years proving my importance through activity that I hadn't built much else underneath it. When the activity faded, there was nothing to replace it. I used to believe that slowing down would feel like relief. Instead, it felt like exposure. Without the noise of busyness, I could finally hear my own thoughts. I could hear the questions I'd been postponing. Who was I when no one needed an answer from me? What did I actually remember from all those years I'd rushed through? I began noticing the empty spaces, the quiet dinners, the weekends with no plans. At first, I filled them the same way I'd filled everything else, with tasks, organizing drawers, fixing things that didn't need fixing, keeping my hands busy so my mind wouldn't wander too far. But the wandering always came back. What I didn't realize in my 40s and 50s was that time doesn't slow down when you ask it to. It doesn't wait for permission. It just keeps going, taking small moments with it, moments you assume will repeat, moments you don't think you need to pay attention to yet. I thought being busy meant I was building something lasting. What I was really doing was trading presence for productivity. There's no villain in this story, no single bad decision, just a series of reasonable choices that added up to a life lived at a distance. I wasn't cruel, I wasn't careless, I was efficient. And efficiency, I've learned, can quietly drain the color from your days. I remember the first time my wife stopped asking me to sit with her in the evenings. She didn't say anything about it, she just stopped asking. At the time, I was relieved. One less thing to juggle. It took me years to understand that silence can be a form of resignation, not anger, not punishment, just acceptance that something won't change. When she passed, there was a moment in the hospital room that keeps returning to me. Her breathing had slowed. The room was dim. I was holding her hand, finally still, finally present, with nowhere else to go. I remember thinking, with a kind of quiet panic, that I would give anything to have one ordinary evening back, one unremarkable night at the kitchen table. No urgency, no agenda, just time. That thought arrived too late to be useful. Living on autopilot feels safe while you're doing it. Decisions are easier when you don't stop to examine them. But autopilot doesn't know what matters to you. It only knows how to keep moving. I let it steer for too long. After she was gone, the house felt larger than it ever had. Not emptier, larger. Every room held the echo of things I'd postponed. Conversations I assumed we'd have later. Trips we planned vaguely but never took. Evenings I thought would always be available. I had been so certain there would be time. What I understand now is simple, but it's not easy. Importance isn't measured by how many people need you. It's measured by how many people know you. And knowing takes time you can't multitask through. It takes attention. It takes boredom sometimes. It takes choosing to stay when there's something else you could be doing. I don't say this with bitterness. I say it with clarity that only came after everything slowed down on its own. There is warmth in remembering the moments I did get right, the mornings we shared quietly, the times I did look up, did listen, did stay. Those memories matter more now than anything I ever crossed off a list. If you're listening to this and you feel busy, truly busy, I won't tell you to quit your job or change your life overnight. I won't pretend it's simple. I'll only ask you something I didn't ask myself soon enough. When the noise quiets, what will be left? Who will still be there? And will they feel known by you? I used to think importance was something you earned through effort. Now I know it's something you give through presence. Time doesn't ask what you intended to do with it. It only shows you what you did. And once it's gone, it doesn't come back differently. I'm 78 now. My days are slower. My calendar is mostly empty. And in that emptiness, I've learned to sit with what is, instead of rushing toward what's next. I wish I had learned that sooner. Not because my life was wrong, but because it could have been closer.